Day in the sunroom. Hey, we're here at the Jersey Shore, broadcasting live from NFL Draft Bible Studios. It's the State of Football Part 81 edition. You know what that means. Monday morning quarterback around the league. Of course, each and every Monday, we have the Northeast Co-Commissioner Ralph Ventre at NEC. Ralph, along with my co-host each and every morning here on the State of Football, your new home for real football talk in the mornings. John Murphy down in New Orleans, of course, VP of Personnel for the Toronto Argonauts. And guys, a lot of great action to dig into. It's another great football Sunday, another college football Saturday, which we'll recap tomorrow on Tuesday's edition with Russell Landy. My Rutgers boys almost chopping off the Wolverines. We'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll talk about the NFL today. The Tua gets canned. Joey Burrow injured, Justin Herbert with a career day, so the rookie's in full effect. We'll talk about Tayson Hill and the Saints. Oh, and there's still an undefeated team, Mercury Morris. Oh, by the way, just keep that champagne on ice. And of course, your Bills with the bye week, I believe, this week, Ralph. So you didn't have to get all nervous on us. But we will begin with John today, because what should have been a celebratory weekend, what should have been John hoisting another Grey Cup, this past weekend. It's the first year in 101 years that the CFL Grey Cup was not played, and it just goes to show the magnitude, the impact, and the effect that COVID still continues to have on the world, on the state of football. And so we'll start right there, John. Just a update here on where the CFL stands, your emotions this morning, and how the journey now continues for those Toronto Argonauts.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to keep it in perspective, and just in terms of you're already seeing, what are the next seasons that are coming already getting affected. So that got to kind of temper your, excitement, or temper your, how you're feeling about it at the moment, right? Already seen Arizona State is backing out of the first NCAA basketball tournament due to the travel and just not thinking it's a wise move. We've seen teams not play over the weekend and have games canceled, COVID related. We kind of joked about it on Friday or Saturday morning show that COVID or no COVID situation, Florida State kind of got themselves out of a situation there. They were about to have a little situation there with Clemson and avoided a 40-point situation, throwing the COVID card kind of at it. And, we know what we think about what happened down in San Antonio, in the past 2 weeks as well. So I still think it's wait and see. I like the factor that the people in charge that are going to have a real say-so over how things go, early in 2021 are rolling with the positives, which is we were all expecting. We heard about, just like we've heard about phase 2 and phase 3 coming back from things. We heard there was going to be a second wave. There is a second wave, and now it's everybody's responsibility to deal with it. When you hear last night, at least on the local news down here, they're saying there's a possibility that there's something available to a percentage of people in the next 2 weeks, followed by the next month, followed by the middle of, early, the first month of next year. Let's see how that plays out. And again, I'm not on the David Turner, I'm not all the way over there, and I'm not all the way over, in Oliver Stone land. But I still am a realist in the sense of this. I get it. I hear the numbers. I can read the numbers. I'm also going to give you a number. 360 million people live in our country. If there is going to be a new illness that none of us have ever seen, do you think there's a chance it might affect 3% of that number? Yes, would be the answer. Do you shut the world down because of that? You make your own decision when it comes to that. I am not going to shut my world down because of that. Can't do it. Yeah, I mean, it's just not a functional reality to say that. At 97%, yes. At 3%, I don't think you can keep doing that forever. If so, we will really be living in a different world and reality, moving forward. So I'll let the smart people, make the decisions on if we're playing, and when we're playing. All we can do is we tell our guys every week when we start our meetings, control the things you can control, which is you have projects, the research you're going to have to do. You have to be in front of things for when it changes. And the good thing, and, if you're looking for a pro and con, this will be the longest the Argos have ever been in last place, is that period of time. So that should be a momentum builder for you every day so that, when they do turn the lights on, whether it's at 60 watts, 100 watts, or, full steam, you're ready to hit the ground running. And for the players, I think for the free agents, it'll be the most competitive opportunity to go and earn yourself a job and then win and keep a job, because everybody else has been off 12 to 18 months. So it is really going to be, kind of survival of the fittest, when you do get that opportunity. Because the good news is now, if you're signed, when you get signed, we won't be able to just have workout after workout, right? Tryout after tryout. So, when you do get signed, I think it'll be a kind of cleaner sign for you that you're going to make it, to a training camp. And if you want to see somebody do something completely outside the box, we have Ben Roethlisberger, who's currently undefeated in 2020. And the only other quarterback in pro football who's currently undefeated, P.J. Walker, 5-0 in the XFL, 1-0 in the NFL. So if you want to believe that something good can come out of all this, P.J. Walker yesterday out there. And if you would have guessed the score would have been 20-0, for sure you would have said Lions on a little bit of a roll for the Lions. 2 in a row is a roll. With Stafford against a free agent quarterback who's their number 3. Again, we've mentioned a couple of coaches, the
nail in the coffin.
University of Scianos over there in Jersey, and here comes Matt Rule, with no quarterback, playing a team that's on a little bit of a hot streak with a couple of their young guys, being more at the forefront yesterday, and the Panthers come back and get a 20-0 victory there. So easy way to transition, and look at what we're looking at not happening, in the CFL, and look at what's happening, in the NFL. And I think that the big thing has been adaptability, right? That's going to be our favorite new word, as we move forward, is you better have adaptability when it comes to whatever part of pro football or college football or sports in general that you're going to be a part of. Because if not, if and when it does keep rolling, it's going to roll whether you can adapt to these new changes or not.
John Murphy, the straw that stirs the drink here this morning on the state of football. Of course, XFL star P.J. Walker will get into his victory. Also, Alex Smith going 742 days between victories. We'll talk about all that, but it has not failed to realize on me, Ralph Ventre, the co-commissioner of the NEC conference. It was about this time last year, Central Connecticut State was also celebrating a championship November 17th, I believe it was. So this past weekend would have likely been the final week of the NEC. You think about Thanksgiving, you think about the FCS playoffs starting to begin. And so, what can you how far behind the scenes can you take us with these FCS discussions? Because here's the FBS game cancellations. We kind of forget about, by the way, there's also going to be a spring season. Is everything still on schedule? Is everything still on par? What do those conversations look like? What can you share with us, Ralph?
Well, no doubt that my Saturdays have had an empty feeling this whole fall season. Just hasn't been the same. I've been used to going to about 8 or 9 games a year, 8 or 9 weeks a year on the road, out at a venue, enjoying a great day of football. And unfortunately, I didn't have that opportunity this fall. And unfortunately, the student athletes didn't have that opportunity this fall. With that said, I know that a lot of those student athletes have been working hard, have been training, have been going to class, whether it's in person or virtual, and they're ready for an opportunity to compete. You mentioned the FCS playoffs. Yesterday, we would have seen the bracket. It would have been a nice pregame for the NFL Sunday, either 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock Eastern. They would have announced the 24-team FCS playoff bracket. And, of course, you mentioned play in that bracket usually kicks off the Saturday after Thanksgiving. We won't have that this year. In 2021, however, the NCAA has committed to running a 16-team FCS playoff, and 12 conferences will receive automatic qualifiers, with the Northeast Conference being one of them. Now, the Northeast Conference hasn't made an official decision on spring football yet for this spring season, but they're exploring a lot of options. There definitely seems to be interest there by a number of the NEC's football playing schools, and just trying to figure out what's best, what's safest, what's most economically feasible. And, I wouldn't be surprised if you see the NEC compete in football this spring with an abridged schedule, 4, 5, 6 game schedule, like a number of FCS leagues are doing. But right now that is yet to be determined. And to be honest with you, a lot of the FCS conferences right now, as well as all of Division I, they're really focused on basketball and trying to get that off the ground, because it is so important that we have an NCAA basketball tournament in March. Missing out on last year's tournament was devastating for a number of reasons, and we need to have that tournament back on television this spring. So we're trying to figure out a way to safely play basketball and get that season off the ground. Some games are actually scheduled for this Wednesday. We'll see how it goes. But with that said, all 10 NEC members will be competing in a basketball schedule, 18-game basketball schedule. And that conference play will start in December. Some schools are playing non-conference right now, upcoming this week. And basically, they're adhering to the NCAA testing guidelines 3 times a week in season, COVID testing. They're adhering to all CDC guidelines and local and state regulations. And we're hopeful we will be able to get a basketball season going, and then we'll take it from there and hopefully have some fall sports in the spring, along with our traditional spring season sports as well. So hoping for a healthy and busy spring. First things first, let's get hoops started. But without a doubt, I miss football on Saturdays more than anyone. And honestly, I know a lot of people have made sacrifices and a lot of people's lives have been different, but my life has been drastically different without NEC football the past few months.
Yeah, I mean, hey, great insight, great perspective, and makes a lot of sense, right? We've got to execute basketball before we can have any kind of football. And so, I would imagine that is across the landscape in the FCS division. So, hey,
it's just a matter of time before you see what everybody is waiting for in the NEC, which is worst to first, baby. LIU 0-10 to 10-0, baby. Come on, Brian Collins.
The
Sharks.
Go out there.
Well, Brian Collins, a great coach. I've had a chance to speak with him on a number of occasions. Really good dude. Really great coach.
Things you don't often hear. First time, last time you'll ever hear it on this show. Brian Collins played football at St. John's. Never hear about the Johnnies playing football.
St. John's did a brief stint in the Northeast Conference right around the turn of the millennium, couple years in the NEC, but no longer a program, of course, unfortunately. But Brian Collins also, as a coach, he went 30-4, 30 wins, 4 losses in his last 3 seasons at D2. And you know what? I would expect some more winning for that program in the future, without a doubt.
So they got Jim
a tough transition year
on that staff. Giants fans will remember he was an offensive lineman for the Giants.
Who's that?
Jim Cordell.
Oh, yeah, sure.
He's on that staff.
Good player, yeah.
Yeah, they got it. It take a little time there, but
good football.
Got a little love out there. Got to give him a little love, because all you got to do is go look back and see some of them games early in Stony Brook's tenure, and now you look at that program and you look at what they have available to them in terms of resources and recruiting and stuff. So LIU wants anybody to look up to in terms of what it can be. It's right there. It's right in your backyard, and there's so many kids that you can get. If you want to, get over there and start recruiting Freeport and Hempstead. You'll come out of there with some linemen. There's some big boys playing in that area.
Well, hey, who doesn't like an excuse to go out to Strong Island, barring the traffic? I usually tend to leave early morning, very early morning, like before the sun comes up. Hey, you never know what you're going to get here on the State of Football here, weekdays, 9 a.m. Eastern. Of course, we've got Russell Landy lined up for tomorrow. We're going to try to pop on Jeff Benedict at some point if you see the new book, The Patriots Dynasty, over my shoulder here. Thursday, we've got Neil Stratton and Dane Vandernat of the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, and, of course, our friends at Inside the League. And then it's a Football Friday edition with Big Law. I'm sure at some point, David Turner. Oh, by the way, we were supposed to send Ryan Roberts the link today. So, Ryan, if you're watching, I forgot he had off from school this week, so he was going to hop on. We'll have him on for the remainder of the week. Ryan, I apologize for that. Little late start for the RIC here at the Jersey Shore. I'm sorry, brother. I'll try to do better the next time. It was a kind of scrambled egg situation going on here in the morning at the Serritella household. So we didn't even get a rundown out to these two gentlemen here, Ralph Ventre and John Murphy. But one thing we don't need a rundown to tell us is that the Pittsburgh Steelers, for the first time in franchise history, the storied history of the Steelers, they are now 10-0. And, I can't remember a team going undefeated this deep into the season and not being talked about. It's almost like they're getting no respect at this point. I don't care. The Steelers are the team to beat. They're undefeated 10 weeks into the season. Mike Tomlin, it seemed like, never got his credit or his due, always living in that Bill Cowher shadow. But what he's done now, I mean, if Mike Tomlin wins another Super Bowl, you've got to start thinking he's going to be getting fitted for a yellow jacket. And so here we are, Steelers 27, Jacksonville Jaguars 3. And speaking of the CFL or Canadian John Mapletron, I mean, this kid is a fantastic talent now, leads all rookies with 10 touchdowns. Unbelievable.
Right. And you see what they're able to do now. Schuster is a different player with Roethlisberger than he is clearly without. But they draft a perfect guy in Deontay Johnson, and then they come back and double down and draft another perfect guy with all the size in the world, which, again, we've had the conversation about where did and why did DK Metcalf go where he went. Now we'll suddenly be having that conversation of why did Chase Claypool do what he did in college, then go to the combine at that size and run in the 4.4s. What exactly did not make it, to everybody else's?
The head scratcher, other than the fact that he was Canadian, eh?
Either that, or did some people think you were going to have to move him inside? Was he too big? I don't, I guess he's too fast, something, along those lines. But you look, and I think the routine thing now with Pittsburgh is you're not in the top 5, so you don't have a 300-yard passer. You don't have multiple 100-yard receivers in this game. You don't have a 100-yard, So it's not about the stats. They're playing complete football, on all ends. This game, it's Johnson and Claypool making the plays for them, and Benny Snell, scoring on the ground, for them. But they get pressure from multiple players. When you think the outside world talks about TJ Watt, we've mentioned several times that when you watch the film, it's really Tuitt and Hayward up front that are just going like gangbusters. And where you have to give the Steelers front office credit is to foreshadow that Big Ben back was going to be making them a playoff caliber team. Because you make a trade when you don't have a quarterback and you trade a first round pick to get a defensive player, that's that's a kind of an interesting scenario last year when they do that. But hey, you get Minkah Fitzpatrick, who on the regular this year, it's not Tyrann Mathieu. You thought it might be Jamal Adams in that trade. Really, it's boiled down to, with the injury he's had in recent weeks, Minkah Fitzpatrick has probably now been the best all-around DB in the league. Because you thought it was Adams, you've seen it be Budda Baker, at times this season, but in terms of when you take the coverage part, the turnover parts, what they're using him to do, and they put him in all these different roles, and all that seems to happen is the player, the ball ends up right around him on a regular basis. And whether it's ending games or creating turnovers, to me, he might be the MVP of their squad defensively, and to have 10 touchdowns as a rookie, is no small feat. So like I said, they have a number of outs in order to get your wins. And to me, here you are this week. It's a win-win scenario. If you're the Steelers, your number one rival on Thanksgiving, and they're on the ropes. So you, as the Steelers at home Thursday night, have a chance to go to 11-0 and potentially score a knockout blow to the Ravens, because the Ravens don't win this week. We mentioned it. Whichever one of those four teams started tilting the wrong way during this tough stretch of playing each other and playing tough games, the Colts got out of Dodge. The Titans got a victory. The Bills are off and extended their lead. So like, you got to get back in here, especially now with how the Raiders are playing. They're going to win the majority of games that aren't against the Chiefs if they play like that. So if you're the Ravens, you're looking like you're going to be on the wrong side of this equation if you don't go into Pittsburgh this week and win. And that's a lot going on right now for how they played against Pittsburgh the last time and how you see the Ravens playing right now. It's not a good sign. The Titans gave it to them physically, on the offensive line, minus Taylor Lewan. It was still Derrick Henry, as the plus player against them.
Well, let's dive into that, because that's where I want to go next. And you mentioned Ravens Steelers on Thanksgiving. Wow, that's great. Give me that all day. Sign me up. But, they also have the Bills in 2 weeks, which I know Ralph has circled on the calendar there to kind of knock off those Pittsburgh Steelers. And then, you mentioned after the Steelers, you saw the Chiefs squeak out one last night, Ralph. You saw the Titans come from a double-digit point deficit to come back and beat those Ravens now and one up them. So Tennessee 7-3, Baltimore 6-4, the Chiefs 9-1, and the Raiders now fighting for their playoff life at 6-4. How do you kind of see the totem pole in the AFC here?
Well, I guess first at the top, you have to put the Pittsburgh Steelers, because they are 10-0 and you only win the games on your schedule. And I really don't care how you win. I know they haven't won pretty at times. They were a little slow to start yesterday. Obviously, a slow start in Dallas. But the bottom line is they won 10 games and they haven't lost. So you have to give them credit. With that said, I think they maybe have one or two really good, solid victories, resume builders. If you were jockeying for an NCAA tournament berth and you were looking at their schedule on the high quality wins, I think really the only good team they beat was Tennessee. I believe they beat Baltimore once as well, but is Baltimore a good team right now? That's debatable. As you move down the totem pole, I think, really the Chiefs are number 2, but as a fan of another AFC team, the Chiefs scare the heck out of me. They're the one team that I am terrified of, and I think that they stand in the way of the Buffalo Bills and any other team in getting to the Super Bowl. You saw how easy Patrick Mahomes made it look in the last 1 minute, 30 seconds last night. The amount of weapons they have, I mean, it's Kelsey, Hill, Hardman, Watkins wasn't even playing. He's been on the shelf for a while. Lev Bell, the rookie Edwards-Helaire is, I mean, I wouldn't trust him in pass blocking, but running the football, he's been pretty good.
Hitting you from every angle.
The Chiefs are they just seem to be able to overwhelm you on offense. And I think if a team like the Bills beats the Chiefs, they have to score at least like 37 points. How many offenses can do that? I know scoring's up across the board in the NFL, but still, that's a lot of points. You definitely have to score into the 30s to beat them. With that said, the Raiders played great last night. We know the Raiders beat them earlier. I like the Raiders as the second-place team in that AFC West. They'll be one of the teams on the inside when the playoff standings are finalized, when the bracket's finalized. Ravens may be on the outside looking in. Browns, they're in the mix, obviously. I think the Dolphins, we can pump the brakes there for a little bit. I think they'll be on the outside looking in. But as far as one of those teams in the hunt and the wild card right now, 5th, 6th, 7th, I like the Raiders. I like them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And not just because of you either. So.
Well, hey, that eye mascara's got to go, but otherwise David Carr's playing pretty well. And hey, I'll put it to you like this: the one thing I do see is the Steelers do have the ammunition, and they've got a better defense than KC, and that might be the ultimate X factor. Is that Steelers defense now they can play, whereas Kansas City, if the Raiders are doing that. Well, the Steelers, they could really light up the scoreboard with Mapletron. And go ahead, Ralph.
No, I hate to say it, and the old adage of defense wins championships, I guess it has proven true over time. But I think in today's NFL and the modern day NFL,
sure, we saw it last year.
It's about how many points you could put up.
Well, and what I'm saying is the Steelers can put up points. And they've got a little bit of defense, which does go a long way.
Great Kansas City offense over any great defense in today's NFL.
Well, hey,
that's what I'm saying. This isn't the 1970s,
I hear you, brother.
We're not going 3 yards in a cloud of dust anymore. Jack Lambert might not even have been drafted nowadays. He wouldn't even be on the field. He'd be a 2-down linebacker. He can't cover.
Well,
no, I know what you're saying. And I would love a good defense, but I just don't know how sustainable winning with a good defense is week in and week out in the NFL these days. And if you have the star quarterback, the MVP, a bevy of offensive weapons, and Andy Reid at the controls, I'm going with that every day over a great defense. And that's just me. And maybe I'll be proven wrong, but that's why we still got 7 weeks to go plus playoffs.
No, it's all good. I mean, listen, the Chiefs are still the champs until someone dethrones them. And you see, Mahomes giving Andy Reid the back massage. They're all loosey-goosey. They're all fun-loving. They're having a good time with it. So we'll see, how that situation plays out. Let's change it up, though. I agree. In the chat room, we're talking about Pittsburgh, KC, Buffalo, Tennessee, Indianapolis, the Raiders, and I'm going to throw the Ravens in there as my 6th seed over. I'm not a believer in the Browns. The Dolphins, I agree with. We'll talk about Tua in a little bit. You can kind of pump the brakes there. But let's switch it up to the NFC, John, because we saw Thursday Night Football. We kind of had a separation matchup between the Cardinals and Seahawks. I don't know how much separation there was really created, but tonight we got the Rams and the Bucs. We'll get into at the end of the show, 2 teams that have as good a chance in the NFC. And then you have the Saints now, who are kind of navigating through the Drew Brees dilemma. And man, here's a guy who signs a TV contract, right? Says, I'll go back. I'll go play one more season. And now you got 11 cracked ribs. I've got one floating around, and it creates a little discomfort. 11, God bless him. You know, he should be back in about 3 weeks, they're hoping. But at what point, you know, you've got that TV contract in the back of your head. You got 11 broken ribs. You know, I know he's a gutsy, competitive kind of guy. At what point do you start really thinking about retirement? And so, John, we get the Taysom Hill experiment, 284 yards passing and rushing, 2 touchdowns via the ground. Thoughts and impressions here, and where do the Saints kind of now rank in this pecking order?
You know, first off, you got to take into consideration Atlanta was 3-1 coming into that game. The one loss was, you know, a tough one there that they lost at the end. They're playing better. You know, clearly they're a little more engaged, you know, to what they're doing, you know, with that the current coaching staff. And that might play off well, you know, kind of long-term here, right? A lot of good relationships there. He's a guy that got an early head coaching job. You know, he's learned some things from it, right? We all know, got real good Brian Levy, you know, representation, you know, that's kept his name afloat here. There's some ramifications behind the scenes that would lead you to believe maybe Atlanta and Houston are going to keep, you know, their 2, you know, current head coaches as coaches. I think if you're the rest of the league, that was a bad experience to watch that yesterday, right? And here's why. No Drew Brees. No Marshawn Lattimore, Alvin Kamara, 0 catches, and they go out and still handle a club that had been playing well and double down, thankfully, on what I had said the last 2 weeks when they were playing against better teams, which is they go out there and absolutely manhandle Matt Ryan and their offensive line. I mean, they had 8 sacks against the Falcons offensive line that features nothing but first-round picks and money that they've thrown at it, and it's still an utter disaster. So when you can find multiple ways to start winning, and now they've only given up 25 points in the last 3 weeks, if they're going to play like that defensively, minus Marshawn Lattimore, and playing against a team that had, you know, Julio Jones and, you know, Calvin Ridley, you got to start looking at, you know, how many of these other teams in the NFC are showing that they can win in multiple fashion. Because we don't think Seattle would have done that, right? We're probably not sure Seattle would have done that. I'm really not sure what Arizona would look like, you know, with Streveler, you know, kind of at the helm, you know, trying to run it. We've seen the Bears. They can't just win with team defense, you know, and nothing else. The Packers are now 6-1 against under 500 teams, 0-2 against teams that have winning records, the Bucs and the Colts. So somewhere else, somebody's got to step up. And here would be your 2 guys tonight that I think would be kind of on the, you know, the rise, sort of say again, you know, the Bucs, you know, that have kept their name in there, you know, since they made all these moves, and the Rams, who have played probably north of everybody's expectations, you know, in this season. They're a little different offensively, a little tougher, you know, in the run game, you know, than they've been. And their younger guys on the defense have really stepped up and played well. And then you have Aaron Donald every week, you know, which is the human sack, you know, pressure machine, you know, coming at you. So to me, the winner tonight probably the clear number 2 team in the NFC. But now that middle group, that would be Seattle or Arizona, to me, probably 3rd. And then you could get the Green Bay into that conversation. But it's a tilting wheel now, that suddenly it may just be the 2 teams tonight and the Saints who are really in the upper class, and someone else is going to have to kind of reset themselves, to see what they do the rest of the way.
Go ahead, Ralph.
No, I'm just surprised that John, I know he lives down there in the bayou, and I'm sure that has some influence on him, but I'm just surprised that he thinks the Saints are this dangerous with the gadget player as the quarterback. I mean, this is Brad Smith. This is maybe Cordell Stewart. I get it, Taysom Hill, he's a good runner. He's a great athlete, but, I mean, to me, the Saints are a lot different team and a lot better of a team with Drew Brees playing at an optimal level than this Taysom Hill experiment. And I have to wonder if Sean Payton is just – there's so much hubris there, and he's just so arrogant and in love with his coaching that he thinks he can win with anybody under center. Drew Brees has had more to do. Drew Brees has had more to do with that organization's success over the past 15 years than anybody in the history of that organization. So Sean Payton, I think he's a little too high on himself. That's all I got to say. And I don't think that Taysom Hill, the Saints are not a Super Bowl contender with Taysom Hill. And the other thing is Drew Brees, he's done. He's done. It's 41 years old, and I give him all the credit for trying, and football is such a big part of these men's lives, and you don't want to give it up, and you don't know what to do on Sundays without playing football. But, Father Time has caught up to Drew Brees. But I agree with John that tonight's game.
Well, hold on. Before we get into that, I'm going to give you. Well, I'll give you my hot take of the day, then maybe of the week. To me, and I agree with you, Drew Brees is over. He's over, and that's why you try to catch lightning in a bottle. Ralph, I think you would agree. We know what we have in Jameis Winston. I know what I'm getting when I put that guy in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but just hear me out. Hear me out. I'm paying Taysom Hill $16 million on a 1-year deal. Drew Brees is not going to be back. Jameis Winston is on a 1-year deal. And in fact, what you're saying, though, is he's high on himself, but the Falcons were playing pretty good football under Raheem Morris. They just dominated the game. And, oh, by the way, I got to give Payton credit because I'm looking at the schedule now. At Denver, at Atlanta, at Philly. This experiment might work. And I got news for you. If Taysom Hill goes 4-0, I'm rolling with Hill right into the playoffs. Forget Drew Brees. I know he's a Hall of Famer, but it's a what have you done for me lately world. And I think Hill gives the Saints the best chance to win. There's my take.
Well, what about Jameis Winston? Let's talk about that. I'd love to hear what John thinks about Winston. I mean, yeah, he was a turnover machine, but he still threw for 5,000 yards and 30-something touchdowns.
We can't do
and
that.
If Wiz, wouldn't he be able to take a raw talent like that and mold him into a really, really good quarterback? I mean, physically, the talent is there. I mean, you don't throw for over 5,000 yards and 30-plus touchdowns by luck.
Bruce Arians is about as good of a quarterback coach in the planet, and he got rid of him. So what's that tell you?
I think it's two things here. One, and I don't doubt all the speculation of how many guys wanted to see this guy play instead of that guy play and things like that. I think when you're the Saints, if you're looking at the conference any way similar, okay, hey, we got the Brady effect out of the way. We're 2-0, and now all we have to do is stay in front of them to be in front of them. The ceiling for Jameis with all these weapons might be that you would have scored 30 whatever yesterday. The floor is that he turns it over 3 times. You don't have to, if you were 5-5 and Breeze is out, I think you got to go Jameis to try to hit that ceiling and catch lightning in a bottle. You can control the game, right? We saw 2 weeks ago, they played a game where they allow a team to run the ball 5 times in the entire game, and it's Tom Brady and Bruce Arians doing it. Yesterday, you play the Falcons, and they know what you're doing, right? Part of what you're saying is you're outthinking yourself, and you're too good for, too smart for your own good. If I'm telling you Taysom Hill's playing, we're going to run the ball, and we're going to try to get into our weapons' hands. Guess what? Mike Thomas, 12 targets, has 100 yards receiving. They ran the ball, 3 different guys, held the clock for 34 minutes, 12 rushing first downs to 1. Doesn't mean you can stop it because you're not practicing against that type of style, because the other teams that play that style are playing kind of a up-tempo, run to the outside, and try to break the pocket and make plays to the outside. Whereas you saw yesterday, whether it was Taysom Hill or it was Latavius Murray, they're banging them right up the middle, running between the tackles, and the more physical. And again, I think this is kind of your trend. If you were looking for a little bit of a trend, Colts against Packers, who was more physical? Colts minus all them stupid holding penalties. You go Titans, Ravens, who ends up more physical at the end of the day? Titans behind the running game. Here you are. If you want to establish something that then could be something that holds over and plays over, if the defense knows they got to play like that, and you're not going to get 8 sacks every week, obviously, and the run game and the offensive line picks up their pace in terms of you still have a young guy in there, and God Lord, have anybody in there other than Andrus Peat, the most overpaid, overrated player in the league at offensive line.
Your boy.
I mean, you want to watch some really bad offensive line film? I'm rooting for Ralph Ventre to slap the helmet back on and get in there at guard for Andrus Peat, and stuff. You can still do your stuff the rest of the week, but golly. And I think that the way that the Saints are, they're also very regimented in the sense of you've seen free agents be added. You've seen good players get added. They don't throw them right into the fire, right into the limelight. Emmanuel said, when they made the trade last year, and they get a guy in, it's not always in the – Emmanuel Sanders work his way, and you're watching, they're playing with other guys, and Emmanuel Sanders is still not the number one guy, and they're throwing the ball to Traquan Smith. So I think a little bit of it is not to expose Jameis Winston and the club just yet. What I really do like about Jameis, even though last week he almost choked on eating a W, is that it looks like that might be the only carbs he's been eating is the W's. Because look at him. He looks like a physically different guy than he did in Tampa, right? So now you keep him just sort of, under wraps doing his thing. And I think that you get Breeze back and the defense is playing and the special teams has, a difference maker at times, and you are doing that ground and pound. This isn't breaking news. It's only breaking news to the people who watch it only once in a while. They haven't been vertically passing since 2015 or 16, right? This has been get it to the playmaker and off and running. And I think you have some people that will make business decisions when Taysom Hill, who is basically looks like CrossFit Drew Brees, right? I mean, he looks like a jacked up, version. And I think this is very manageable. Like 18 out of 20, 23 or 25 for 250. You're going to Denver. Miami proved that wasn't an easy thing to do. And Fangio will be ready for it and give him a good look and give him some different things that they haven't seen. The Eagles haven't stopped anybody, and Carson Wentz better get some extra insurance before he plays the Saints. The way that offensive line,
he is so terrible,
has been going
bad.
And then you have Atlanta in this mix I mean, honestly, if they lose, even though it's road games, at Denver, at Philly, and if they lose a game in there, it's going to be an upset, or it's going to be something that it turns out, well, hey, that wasn't a good game that day by those guys. But I think leaving Jameis so that you're not pulling them, right? Taysom's used to this whole scenario of getting pulled and playing and moving around and whatever. If at some point you put Jameis in, it has to be that you've now got him back and ready to play. I don't think you could fool around with Jameis yesterday the way that the Dolphins kind of did that, right? The way that we've seen Washington kind of use a variety of quarterback until they figured out who they wanted to play. I don't think you want to mess with Jameis, sort of that way. I think the Saints were cool with the investment. They know the rest of the league has no interest in really Jameis Winston, and I bet they double down, and he's back next year with Hill. But I think the thing with Drew Brees is that's why we're doing what we're doing, and he's doing what he's doing. That's a irrelevant factor. The factor that he now has 11, he played with 4 or 5 that he got 2 weeks earlier in the Buccaneers game, and then just doubled down when Kendra Street, smushed him. All this is the same thing. Why is Tom Brady in Tampa trying to win a title with guys that are wearing, the ugly orange jerseys, on a regular basis? They're just built different.
Yeah.
Right. This is just another stuff. This is Drew Brees now wanting to have everybody say what he can't do and come back and play a game at 41, overcoming 11 broken ribs and doing something that in his mind is a challenge. Right. So it's almost like, to us, shut her down, take the TV deal. To Drew Brees, let me get out there and go win a game, go win a playoff game, go win it when everybody says I have no reason to be doing it. Yeah, you do, because they wake up and they're just a different, kind of a different breed, right?
I'll say this. I don't care. Taysom Hill is going to have a say if they have any kind of run, because even when Brees comes back, I think Hill will have as big as role as ever in that Saints offense. And it comes down to this final word, and we move on. They've got more weapons. I mean, every game there's about a dozen guys on offense touching the ball. And then I see things like Michael Thomas has got more catches through his first 5 seasons than any player in history. Wow, 489. You've got Alvin Kamara, the only player in NFL history, the only player to have 500 rushing, 500 receiving through his first 4 years. It allows them to part ways with guys like Mark Ingram. But we still got to get Monday Night Football in. Quickly here, a lot of great quarterback stories. We're not going to get to them all. Alex Smith, 742 days between a victory. They topped the Bengals. PJ Walker, 266 yards, no turnovers, I believe, and the Panthers 20-0 win. But it's the rookies. Ralph, I'll give you the platform, whatever rookie you want to talk about. Herbert goes for a career high on the Jets, 366. Burrow with the season-ending ACL injury. You never like to see that. And then Tua gets canned. He gets benched, but will start the next game. Where do you want to go with the rookie QBs?
This for me?
Yes, Ralph. Thanks for joining us.
Tua. I guess we'll go with Tua. I mean, I assume that Brian Flores was tired of seeing 3 yards per attempt. I mean, I know the Dolphins were 3-0 in his first 3 starts, but let's be honest. I said it before. I'll say it again. They were not 3-0 because of Tua. They were 3-0 because of some really good defense, some really timely plays, some good special teams. And what it boils down to is it was unsustainable production. You see yesterday they got an early interception and a short field against the Broncos, and they cashed in, and then they did nothing the rest of the way. The 3 prior games, whether it's punt returns, fumble returns, short fields, I mean, everything was lining up aces for the Dolphins. And I think yesterday you just saw it come back to earth. I'm not sure now what to think with Flores going to Ryan Fitzpatrick in the fourth quarter of that game. Flores comes out after the game and says that Tua is his starting quarterback moving forward, but you still can't get past the fact that for some reason he didn't trust Tua in the fourth quarter of that game yesterday. He thought that Ryan Fitzpatrick gave them a better chance to win. I mean, why else would you make the quarterback change unless so yeah, I mean, as far as the young quarterbacks go, Herbert's continuing to put up big numbers. They finally get a win, albeit against the Jets. I love what I see from Justin Herbert. He was my favorite quarterback in this past draft class. And Joe Burrow, of course, I mean, I don't need to say it. Everybody's saying it. It's just a terrible thing. You never want to see it. And I hope he gets back as soon as humanly possible. But that's just the unfortunate side of football, the ugly side of football, and sometimes really the unlucky side of football. So with that said, I mean, I don't think the Bengals offensive line was doing many favors for Joe Burrow throughout this whole season. But with that said, yeah, these injuries happen, and you just hope that they don't happen to your guy. And you just hope that when they do happen, the player is able to recover and move forward and reach that level where they were prior to injury.
Well, any NFL team watching, protect your assets. You know, when you draft a franchise quarterback, it's usually a good idea to come back around and draft a franchise tackle or some kind of protection. As good as the T. Higgins pick was, that should have been an offensive tackle there. And you saw it, you know, with the Jets, Mekhi Becton fiasco. You throw Darnold in there behind a shoddy offensive line. It's the reason why Tua didn't start right away. It's the reason why Herbert didn't start right away. And when you throw these rookie quarterbacks behind a shoddy offensive line, this is what happens. I hate to say it, but this is what happens. And now, you know, Herbert has a clear path. Not a clear path, but a strong path to the offensive rookie of the year. Chase Claypool's going to have something to say. James Robinson is going to have something to say. Edwards-Helaire is probably in the mix there. One other side note from that Jets game, Frank Gore, kudos to him. 16 consecutive seasons of 500 scrimmage yards. I think only Jerry Rice has more. As funny as it sounds, I still don't view Frank Gore as a Hall of Famer. I know he's like one of the top 3 or 4 rushers of all time. I just never saw Frank Gore as the best running back in the league in any single season. Like, he wasn't even the best running back in the league any given year. So,
but the one with Frank Gore, though, he is the ultimate compiler, but you have to have some kind of respect for the longevity, especially at that position. And I guess if you're 3rd overall in rush yards, even if you were never a wow type player, I mean, you got to put him in, right? You got to put him in.
No, because I never thought he was the top 3.
I put a statue on the front lawn of the Hall of Fame because he's in the Hall of Really Good, which is on the front lawn of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and it's like, it's like last night the announcers, they're talking as if Phillip Rivers is just a given Hall of Famer, the battle of 2 Hall of Famers, and like, to me, you want to put him in the same category as Aaron Rodgers? I don't see it. I don't know. They're going to share the same room together up in Canton. I don't know. Hey, what I do know is we've got a good game tonight here. Monday Night Football. Los Angeles Rams 6-3, heading into Tampa Bay 7-3. Ralph, we'll start off with you since I've got to now figure out some time and see what John says. I've got to chip away on my 4-game deficit here. But who do you have in tonight's matchup?
This is a tough one. I feel like I'm copping out by saying it could go either way. I really don't have a rhyme or reason for the pick, but I'll go with the Rams tonight. I don't know, just a feeling, just a hunch. But without a doubt, I got that feeling too. Don't worry. But with the Buccaneers, their defense has been playing at a high level. If they can sustain that, I think you have to think that Brady only becomes more comfortable week after week with Bruce Arians and his first-year teammates. Buccaneers certainly have a lot of weapons, but I think the Rams have been playing pretty well too. And I'll go with the boy genius, Sean McVay tonight.
Fair enough. They're riding high, those LA Rams, and I don't know if all three of those teams can squeeze into the playoff mix. So this is almost I don't want to call it a must-win game, but a very, very critical game here with the Buccaneers, of course, rebounding last week. And it's funny because the pick'em standings, nobody has ever been in a bigger lead by more than one game. It's either been tied, or I had a one-game lead, or John had a one-game lead. There's never been more of a one-game lead. And so yesterday, I go the other way on 3 games. All 3 games go down to the wire. I had the Packers, obviously, they blow the lead. I had the Raiders, they blow the lead. And then I had the Ravens, and they blow the lead. And so now all of a sudden I'm at a 4-game deficit trying to look up on the mountain here. I lose 3 games yesterday by a matter of 10 points in total. And so here we are now, John. You're in cruise control with the 4-game lead in the standings. This one, as Ralph said, kind of a coin toss game. So I'm paying very close attention to who you pick here.
Yeah, and the thing that the Bucs have struggled with, the games that they have not played well in are when people have been able to get Brady kind of off his point. And now it looks no Ali Marpet, still, and we definitely know who plays on the D-line, for the Rams. They've done a good job, in terms of it's not always the same guys. You think Henderson's taking a job, and then Malcolm Brown, comes back with a good effort. I'd be a little concerned with the Higbee, the tight end scenario here, against those athletic linebackers. They're definitely going to get tested, tonight against them. The one thing that's been surprising is with all the additions that the Buccaneers made, Ronald Jones has finally shook out to be the guy that they thought they were drafting. And we all know, against a really good pass rush, the way to slow it down would be for a ground game. Well, those games all went the wrong way for Rick on Sunday, and this pick's going to go the wrong way for Rick too, because what Rick would really like is for me to agree with Ralph, because he might be wearing that blue and gold, but that baby wanted the GOAT tonight. But I'm going Tampa Bay because you ain't getting one back from me tonight, baby. You're going to have to go to Thanksgiving down by 4.
SOB.
Hey, when you're up, when the table's giving it to you, you don't give it back.
Well, I'm gonna at least have a chair at the Thanksgiving table, so I'm thankful for that. I am gonna go with the Buccaneers tonight. My guys Brady and AB, they're gonna keep it rolling, and it's gonna be a fun game to watch, though. So all 3 of us are. No, Ralph's going with the Rams. John and myself are going with the Bucs. I will remain 4 games back regardless. Of course, we'll have a Thanksgiving preview here for you this week. Tomorrow we'll have Russell Landy with the NCAA recap and preview. We'll also have Jeff Benedict on, hopefully at some point here, to talk about his new book, The Dynasty. Football Friday in full effect with Big Law David Turner. John, I see you grinning over there. We're skipping parting shots today. I have a call.
Skipping parting shots because he already took 3 of them this weekend.
Yeah, and we'll be back at it again tomorrow on the State of Football, your new home for real football talk in the mornings.